I just read where the Clippers shut down their facility for the second day because one person tested positive. And I'm just wondering, is that something you have to consider, even with the Lakers going forward, before you even get to Orlando, that this is a possibility they can shut things down?
Absolutely, it's something that we have to consider. We're going to try to do as much work as we can this week, and the reason the league has limited it to individual workouts is to try to reach our travel date as healthy as possible and be as safe as possible within this week till we get into the bubble. So, these are considerations that we have. We have to follow the guidelines, the health guidelines of the league and the local Department of Health, and make those types of decisions. Yes.
Alrighty, next up, Kyle Goon, please.
Hey Frank, the league and NBPA are starting to come to some agreements on messages that can be on the back of player jerseys. I know you said yesterday that you were interested in perhaps being a part of that. Has the coaching staff discussed maybe showing support for some social issues that you guys care about and how that would be done?
We have. I don't want to get into the details of what we're going to unveil when we get to Orlando, but the Coaches Association has discussed ways that we can, wear things visually, but also in ways where we can be very vocal and use our platform to help this movement for sure.
Okay, Melissa Rowland, please.
Hey Frank, Alex Caruso was talking about how Jared Dudley has been one of the most vocal guys alongside LeBron James on their group text message chain, just in terms of keeping the team together and their chemistry going during the last 4 months. I'm curious, how big of a part do you think Jared Dudley plays to contributing to the team's chemistry and just sort of his veteran role and sort of being a leader on the team?
Well, one of the reason we've had success in our season to this point is because not only do we have two megastars in LeBron and Anthony, but we've had several guys that have starred in their roles. And, whether you're talking about perimeter defensive types of guys or, our centers, contributing by committee. And I would put Jared Dudley in that boat of being a star in his role. He has really impacted our team's togetherness and chemistry and quite frankly, just brought a great deal of leadership to make sure that we're all going about our business the right way and having the right attitude and doing things together. And, it's just strengthening that chemistry and togetherness, which has really helped us to this point. So, I would call Jared Dudley a star in his role from that standpoint of doing all those types of things.
Hey, Dave McMenamin, please.
Hey, Frank. You told us yesterday you're bringing 17 guys down to Orlando and 17 players, and you guys have such a big lead right now. I'm sorry to get some feedback. I don't know what's on my end, but you guys have such a big lead in the standings that with those 8 seeding games, do you anticipate kind of emptying your bench using all of those guys, not only to reward them for making the commitment to come down to Orlando, but in case there's any sort of injuries in the playoffs that these guys get some playing time?
Yeah, I would think that we're going to use everyone. Obviously we'll take it on a game-by-game basis. The goal of these seeding games is to get us to go into the playoffs, and just like it would be for the final 8 games of a normal regular season, go into the playoffs as healthy and as sharp as we can be. And each day we'll evaluate that. We'll measure the balance there about which guys are going to be in, how many minutes they're playing. Part of guys like Kostas and Devontae being a part of this camp and the practices and getting opportunities in those games is just from a coaching standpoint to sharpen all your assets. You never know who you're going to need. And, if you leave those guys over there without an opportunity, you may end up needing to call their number at some point, and they may not be as ready as you want them to be. So we'll be hopeful to get everybody some run in those games, but at the same time, we're going to measure making sure that we're as sharp as possible going into the playoffs as well.
Alan Sliwa, please.
Hey, Coach. Hey, just wanted to get your thoughts. I know there's probably a range of emotions for each player. How have you kind of handled, I guess you could say from a comfort level for some of these players going to Orlando? Is that kind of a case-by-case thing? But just your thoughts on how each player, I guess you could say, how you handle their comfort level going to Orlando.
Yeah, just a lot of conversations, checking in with them throughout the pandemic, how they're feeling about things, and and obviously as the memos began to come out and the details started to come out, just checking with them, to see how everybody's feeling about everything. Everybody has different levels of concern about all that goes into this endeavor. And in everything, we always want to support our players, and I would extend that to our staff, to make sure that they're feeling comfortable and confident in their jobs and their roles and what's in front of us. So just communicate.
Okay, Claudia.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Hi, Frank. How are you?
Good.
So, the entire league, from the commissioner to the players, coaches, and other people, are supporting the social justice movement. Have you noticed the players being a little more motivated to play well as part of their activism?
Yeah, I think that will be more prevalent when we're actually practicing. Right now, we're just doing individual workouts, so to evaluate their play. I do think that on top of using their voice and their platform to affect change, I do think they'll be motivated to do it with their play as well. This is something that is very important to our league, and I do think it will carry on to the court, with guys being motivated to perform well.
Thank you.
Alrighty, does anybody else have any questions for Coach? Go ahead, just feel free to jump in, guys.
Hey, Frank. Piggybacking onto the question that David asked earlier, with some of the deeper bench guys getting opportunities over the course of the season, is there anybody in particular that you've been curious about how they would, I guess, react or perform in these type of games?
Well, less over the course of the season and more towards the end of the season when we acquired Dion and JR. Just making sure that I'm really curious to see how they look in our practices, in our scrimmages, when we get to play some of the seeding games. Obviously I know their games very well from having competed against them over the years, but for those two guys, just having an opportunity to see what they look like in our system, something I'm interested in. I do think as crazy of a year as it was, Quinn Cook, I think, had a handful of opportunities, but he started the preseason injured, and probably would like to see more opportunities for him to see what he can do. We know what he can do, but again, the more of a body of work we have, the better. And then, like I mentioned earlier, our two G League guys had a lot of success in the G League. I'd like to see what they can do at this level.
Frank, I have kind of a random question since it's a free-for-all. I'm just curious if you had any, with all the time you had over the suspension, if you got weird with any ideas for this team, if you drew up any plays on cocktail napkins, and if there's anything you're just excited to try with these guys that you came up with over the course of the last 4 months.
Well, I studied a lot of what other teams do during the break, and obviously, the balancing act that's going through my mind right now is bringing us back to where we were, with the things we had in, while looking at all these creative ideas that you see other teams running this package or doing this defensive scheme, and you want to have an opportunity to implement and explore all of it, and you're likely not going to be able to. But there are a bunch of things on both ends of the floor that I'm eager to try to implement with our group if it doesn't impact us, first getting back to where we were.
Frank, somewhat related to that, given that there's going to be so few group practices and time to sync, is there a part of you that's sort of preparing for, hey, some nights we're just going to have to win ugly. We may not be playing the style we want or the way we want, but we're just going to have to kind of find a way to muscle through?
Yeah, I think the whole league, I think this whole finish to our season is going to be filled with that mindset by all teams. This is going to be an imperfect way to go into the playoffs and play playoff basketball, but the whole league is dealing with the same set of rules, and there is going to be an element of we got to gut some things out, and if it means winning ugly, we got to win ugly. I'm known as a defensive coach, so I've a lot of defensive coaches they take pride in winning ugly. I personally don't. I like to dominate. I like to have our defense be tenacious and make their offense look ugly, but I like our offense to be a fine-tuned machine. And so I don't really like the phrase that I like winning ugly, but there will be an element of that, I think, league-wide with all the circumstances going into this finish.